Welcome to the Genealogy Gems Podcast. It's a show filled with family history, research, strategies and techniques, news and entertainment, and inspiration. And I'm your host, Louise Cooke. Welcome to the Genealogy Gems Podcast episode number 158. And welcome to the newest descendant of the Queen of England, George Alexander Louis, better known as His Royal Highness Prince George of Cambridge. You know, 6 previous British kings have been named George, and I understand that the name was a favorite among British bookmakers in the run-up to the announcement on July 24th of 2013. Well, the little charmer made his first public appearance on the steps of London's St. Mary's Hospital, and I just think it's always a joy when any family adds to the tree, and being an absolute avid royal watcher myself, I have thoroughly enjoyed the baby watch and watching it all live on television. But you know, royal babies have not been the only news this week, and don't think that I let it sidetrack me from keeping my eye on the latest genealogy news. So let's get right to it. All right, attention Gmail users. Gmail has revised the Gmail dashboard to now include tabs. These are separating your emails based on the type of content in the email. Now, overall, I really like this, but I did want to bring it to your attention because the Genealogy Gems email newsletters are probably going to land in the Promotions tab rather than the Primary tab, which is your default tab, the one that shows up first on your screen. The problem with this is that we are so used to focusing on what's in our inbox that's right in front of us, and it's easy to forget that there's a promotional tab and a social tab as well. And I know that I'm having a little bit of difficulty retraining myself to check those other tabs. So to ensure that you get your Genealogy Gems newsletter emails instantly, all you have to do is move the next one that you get to the Primary tab. Or if you've already got a copy of the newsletter that's still in your Promotions tab, you can do this as well. All you have to do is click on the email, grab it, and then drag and drop it over onto the Primary tab. Do that once, and from that point forward, your Genealogy Gems newsletter emails are going to show up in your Primary tab, making them, of course, the top priority that they are, and you won't miss a thing. So if you are a Gmail user, you'll want to do that. But I've got to say, I really do like this tab assortment, and I am getting used to jumping between the various tabs. It actually makes me feel like my inbox isn't quite as crowded as it usually looks because it's sort of divvied up. And you know what else it's doing? It's really keeping my mind on what I'm trying to do at that moment versus constantly being sidetracked, you know, with Facebook or Pinterest or social networking that pops into my inbox, and then I get all, you know, caught up in that. Now I can select it a couple times a day, and certainly I enjoy those emails, but, you know, not every second of every day. And I've got some other great news for you. The Genealogy Gems podcast app is now available for Windows 8. So if you have a Windows 8 smartphone, a tablet, desktop, our app provides you the ability to stream or download free Genealogy Gems podcast content. And of course, you can even share your favorite episodes. So here's what you need to know. First, you're going to want to download the Genealogy Gems phone app. Now, we've already got it out for Android as well as for Apple. It's only $2.99, and you'll find it in the various stores, including now, of course, the Windows Phone store. Once you've got it installed, a live tile will be available on the Start menu. Opening the app will provide you with a list of episodes available for the show. You can swipe left or right to move through your favorites, download episodes, and recently played episodes. Selected episodes will be highlighted with a check mark in the corner. So tapping on an episode that you want to listen to will open it up in the app player. Clicking on the 3 dots in the lower right-hand corner are going to open up the menu shortcuts, and that's going to give you easy access to marking episodes as your favorites, or downloading the episodes for offline listening, or sharing those episodes, of course, with your friends. And as I said, there is a desktop app as well for Windows 8 now. So opening the app on your desktop is going to provide you, again, that list of episodes available for the podcast on the right with a player on the left, and it utilizes all the standards of the Windows 8 navigation. Selected episodes will be highlighted with a check mark in the corner. An episode can be bookmarked by marking it as a favorite, and episodes, of course, can be downloaded so that you can listen to them offline. In downloading a file, the status of the download is going to appear. Once an episode is favorited or downloaded, you can set the app to show only those favorite episodes or those downloaded files. And you can also view a list of what episodes were recently played. The Genealogy Gems podcast app is still the one and only family history podcast app that's available, and as you might recall, it was named a must-have app for Hobbies by App Advice, which we are very proud of. So welcome all of you on Windows 8 to the Genealogy Gems podcast app. In other genealogy news, Fold 3 and Ancestry trees has some new news. Now, when you discover an ancestor's record on fold3.com, which of course is very focused on military records, you can save it online to your tree at ancestry.com. This is a pretty cool feature. According to fold3.com's press release, they say whenever you see a green Save to Ancestry button above a document or on a Fold 3 memorial page, you can link that document or page directly to someone's profile on Ancestry. You'll be asked to log into your Ancestry.com account, and then you'll see a drop-down list of your trees. All you got to do is locate the tree that you want to save the document to, begin typing the name of the person to whom the record should be attached, choose the correct name from the list that appears, and then press save. And in the show notes, I'm going to have a tutorial video that you can take a look at to see a little bit more and see how it's done. And there continue to be some changes over at FamilySearch. Now, we've talked here on the podcast before about OCLC, which you might know better as WorldCat.org. It's kind of a global online card catalog for libraries around the world. And they had announced a partnership with FamilySearch. I had an interview with the president of OCLC at RootsTech this year. That video you can watch over at the Genealogy Gems YouTube channel. And we were talking about the merger and the changes over at the FamilySearch catalog, which has, of course, been called now FamilySearch Catalog rather than the Family History Library Catalog, just a little bit of a tweak. And they told us that they are planning to load their catalog records into WorldCat by the end of this year. This is 2013. And that was one of the big questions. When was this kind of going to happen? In the case of their much larger records at FamilySearch, they might actually be abbreviated. So in order to kind of meet that deadline, patrons discovering their catalog records on WorldCat are going to be able to click through from worldcat.org straight to the FamilySearch catalog at FamilySearch.org to view the complete record. And WorldCat will eventually show holdings in selected regional family history centers as well. There are currently no plans to change the circulation policy, so that means microfilm can still be ordered from your FamilySearch center, as they always have been. If you have a local one near you, you can go in and order a microfilm, and they'll have it delivered, kind of interlibrary loan, right to your location. But other materials, like their hard copy books, aren't circulated from the Family History Library in Salt Lake City. However, they are scanning their books. They have over 80,000 of them online. So if you haven't checked out Family History Library books in a while online, you might be surprised. You're going to find a lot of them right there viewable from the comfort of your own home. And those links are going to be in the WorldCat catalog. This is really going to be nice. So you can expand your search beyond the Family History Library to include all the major libraries included in WorldCat while still getting that instant clickable access to the records themselves. And of course, they can all still be searched on FamilySearch.org as well by selecting books. And if you've been doing some family history research for a while, you probably have heard, or maybe you've even used, PAF. It's Personal Ancestral File Software. Well, it's been hard at work for a long time as a true pioneer in genealogy and computing, and now it's retiring. It's not that your PAF software is going to suddenly stop working. That's not what's going to happen. But as of July 15th of 2013, you are no longer able to get downloads, support, or upgrades from FamilySearch. And they've made the software available since 1984. So what does this mean for those of you who are PAF users? The current version of PAF supports exports to GEDCOM files. That's still a universal file type for genealogy software. So while GEDCOM still remains supported on other software and online family tree hosts, you'll be able to transfer that data from your tree. And those who want to continue to use FamilySearch products like Family Tree, FamilySearch recommends to switch to software that partners with FamilySearch. That would be Ancestral Quest, Legacy Family Tree, or our own sponsor here on the podcast, RootsMagic. You can learn more about the PAF discontinuation and what it means to you and the supported software options over at FamilySearch. And just to put in a plug for RootsMagic, who of course is a Genealogy Gems podcast sponsor here, RootsMagic 6 is Share certified by FamilySearch for use with the family tree. The only software, as RootsMagic says, that's certified to collaborate and share data and sources with FamilySearch Family Tree. So if you're already using RootsMagic 4 or 5, you're going to need to upgrade to RootsMagic 6 to get that interface. And I'll have all those details for you in the show notes. And speaking of RootsMagic, now you can find short training videos in addition to the free full-length webinars that are on RootsMagic's new YouTube channel. It's called RootsMagic TV. So if you're a RootsMagic user or you've been interested in becoming one, maybe thinking about making a switch, FamilySearch, Family Tree, or PAF users in particular might be considering that. You're going to love these really helpful tutorials over at the RootsMagic TV channel at YouTube. Of course, totally free. And you can let your voice be heard because RootsMagic told us that they are really interested in getting your suggestions for topics to cover in future short videos as well. So you can email them at support@rootsmagic.com. Next up, we were talking about the British royal family. Well, the London Metropolitan Archives says that half the inquiries they receive are from family historians over there in Britain. And this is likely due to their rich resources at the London Metropolitan Archives. I'll have a link in the show notes for you so you can actually check out all their collections. They're pretty cool. Because there is such a strong genealogy interest in the London Metropolitan Archives, they're making a really big effort to reach out to genealogists. They're also educating us and sharing what's at LMA through their website, their hands-on classes. They've got remote research services and partnership with data sites like ancestry.co.uk and findmypast.co.uk. All of this is just from a city archive. So go to the show notes. You can check out a video that they've put together just for family history researchers. So if you have some British roots, and specifically in the city of London, check it out. Were your ancestors vicious or in chronic want? Well, London poverty maps map it all out. There is a fantastic blog post on a blog called Mad About Genealogy, and it's about the Booth poverty maps, which looks like a riveting way to understand your ancestors' 1880s London neighborhood. According to blogger Linda Elliott, Booth employed a team of social investigators who walked around the London streets, often in the company of the local policemen, and recorded what they saw and heard. The notebooks that they filled out can be viewed online, and they make for fascinating reading. Amongst other findings, they record what the policemen thought of each street and sometimes each building and its inhabitants. Can you imagine if you stumbled into him commenting on one of your ancestors? She's got a key to the map on the website. It was clipped from the Charles Booth Online Archive, and Linda describes each category in greater detail in her blog post, along with everything that a genealogist needs to know to use the maps. And again, all of that in the show notes. All right, well, we've been talking about what's been going on globally in genealogy news. Let's find out what's happening in your neck of the woods, and we'll do that over at the Mailbox.
some jokes from my old pal Jim Brown. Bring me a letter from that girl of mine, saying that she's longing for me all the time. Bring me a letter from my proud old dad, who knows that we are winning, and I bet he's glad. But more than any other, a line from my old mother. Bring me a letter from my hometown.
First up here in the mailbox from Alan. He says, I just listened to your most recent show and I wanted to comment on the Ancestry.com search update that you discussed. I'm sure you have a direct line to them. Well, sort of, kind of, probably not so much as you think. But yeah, and I absolutely will pass this along. And he says, I wanted to offer some suggestions that they might be able to use. First, and I think you may have mentioned this specifically, it would be nice if there were a way to exclude certain records from a search, either automatically or by selection. I agree. Alan says, in particular, I'm thinking that if I have a 1920 census record attached to a person, there should be some way to exclude 1920 census results from a search. Absolutely. He says, clearly, that is not a record that I need if that person already has one attached. Secondly, and related to the first, it would be nice if there were some level of confidence, he puts in quotation marks, or other kind of a rating one could apply to a record match. That way I could attach a record to a person with no confidence, but still have it reference a certain person, or with a moderate confidence or a high confidence level. This might also apply to relationships as well. I think this would go a long way towards solving the problem of people posting incorrect information on their tree and others copying it. The truth is, there's all kinds of information that we associate with our trees that we're not completely sure about, but we still feel reasonably confident about. But if there were some way to make that known, both to ourselves and to others, it would help the situation. Ancestry.com could then incorporate these into my first search suggestions so that records with a high confidence would trigger a filter to remove other similar records that would not apply. In any case, Alan says, I love the show. Keep it up. Alan, I loved your email, and I think these are great suggestions. I will definitely pass them on to my contacts over at Ancestry. I totally agree that there is such a variation in how applicable a particular record is. And I certainly, have my little roundabout ways of attaching items that I haven't yet totally proved, but I don't want to lose track of them. Not every analysis session is completed in one sit-down session, right? We kind of have to come back when life allows us to. So you don't want to lose track of what you're already kind of looking at, what you think some possibilities are, but you're not ready to, put the full stamp of approval on it. So how great if we could not only record that, but also have those things taken into consideration by Ancestry as a search filter. Very cool ideas. And from Debbie, she says, my son sent me the interesting link below to a Flickr page that I thought might interest your subscribers. They are older photos superimposed onto an existing landscape. And yes, Debbie, we've actually featured these. Oh my gosh, it was quite a while ago. But there are a couple of different sites out there that do this, where they go to a modern day location and they have a photograph of that location, many, many years ago, and they will hold it up and kind of superimpose it to give you that time travel feel, if you will. So I'll have a link so you can check out what Debbie and I are talking about here in terms of these old photos superimposed on modern day landscapes over at Flickr. You might want to try this for yourself. Kind of a fun activity for you and the kids, I think. Okay, and the Genealogy Gems toolbar. I recently got a question about the Genealogy Gems community toolbar from podcast listener Cooke. And it's a great question, and it gives me an opportunity to talk a little bit more about the toolbar and kind of give you some updates on that. She says, "Hi, Lisa. I just loaded your toolbar. I now have Bing on my system, and I can't get rid of it. Was it downloaded with your toolbar? Hope not. I hate Bing, and now it's causing me problems." Okay, well, the toolbar causes Bing to appear, and it's the default search address, default URL address, if you will, when you open a new browser tab and when you don't specify a website address specifically. So Bing is a website. It's not a download. So the good news here is that actually the toolbar did not download Bing at all to your system. It literally just made it the default address for a new tab. And that's just an address in the browser window. Unfortunately, the company that offers us the free toolbar helps make it free to all of you. They dictate which search engine is the default on each new tab when you open tabs with your browser and you have the toolbar installed. I've requested it to be Google. It used to be Google, but now they have a contract with Bing. So that means that the toolbar... And since the toolbar is a free offering from the company, it's called Conduit, they unfortunately have control over that, much to my disappointment. However, we have kept the toolbar anyway because so many of you guys, I know, use it and you've requested that it remain available. They actually also, at least I notice on my desktop computer here, that when I now open the browser and I've got the toolbar, sometimes I get little shopping prompts. I think it's coming from the toolbar. So if you don't like it, I completely understand if you want to uninstall the toolbar. It shouldn't hurt your system at all, but it's kind of unfortunate that they've taken a little bit of the control away from us as users. So if you want to uninstall the toolbar, here's how to do it. If you're on a PC, click the down arrow. It's just to the right of the first button on the left-hand side of the toolbar. And the first button is the picture of my little podcast family, my logo family. So you click that down arrow, select uninstall, and the next page provides instructions for uninstalling based on which browser you're using. And I fully understand that Bing is not everybody's favorite search choice, but when I considered eliminating the toolbar altogether, there were a lot of people who were like, no, because, we've got some great links to websites. We've got the search box. You can listen to the podcast for free from there. There's even a little clickable Pinterest button and a gadget that will show you Google Earth. So lots of cool features for, something for nothing. And if you don't like it, of course, you can certainly uninstall it. But I'm glad that you gave it a try. And most importantly, I always, of course, thank you guys just for being Genealogy Gems podcast listeners. And hopefully the toolbar will be of value to many of you. Okay, now Sarah wrote in and she says, I want to learn how to use RootsMagic 6 that goes to the trees. Okay, so we just kind of talked about that a little bit earlier in the news. Here's specifically what you can do. You can watch the free RootsMagic class. It's called Using FamilySearch Family Tree with RootsMagic. It's on their website. You'll find it at rootsmagic.com/webinars. So that's Using FamilySearch Family Tree with RootsMagic. Hope that helps, Sarah. And from Sherry, she's a premium member up in British Columbia, Canada. She says, I wrote to you several months back to tell you about my new family history blog. It's called My Descent into Descent. I love the cute names you guys come up with. This is awesome. So it's My Descent into Descent.blogspot.ca. And she says, you've inspired me to create it. Well, you've also inspired me to use my new iPad, which my husband gave me for Christmas, as a tool for my research and now for blogging. Recently, my sister and I took our long-awaited family history road trip to New England, and I took my iPad along to blog from the road. I also brought along a keyboard and would blog in the morning using the Blogger app while my sister and niece were still sleeping. It was fun to share our experiences almost as they were happening, as well as the crisp and clear photos I was taking with my iPad. As my sister was more interested in the stories from our mutual family tree and less in the research, We tried to plan our trip to include destinations that would interest us both. As I've discovered that we are Mayflower descendants, one of the places we visited was the Plymouth Plantation in Plymouth, Massachusetts. As you may know, it includes a near-authentic replica of the village of Plymouth circa 1627 and has actors portraying the roles of the people living there that year. They were well-versed in the stories of the pilgrims they were portraying and staying in character while they were conversing with you. I was hoping I might run into an actor playing one of our ancestors, but I couldn't believe our luck. Of the handful of actors we met, 2 were portraying our ancestors, Hester Cooke, Cooke with an E, and Richard Warren, who actually gets to talk to their long-departed ancestors on a family history road trip. Amazing, as you often say. Thank you so much for the many ways you inspire and inform us all. I would very much like to recommend to your listeners that they consider blogging their family history. Since I started my blog in November, I have had over 4,000 hits when I only expected to receive a few. Most excitingly, I had also wanted to connect with the descendants of my great-grand-aunt Lily. After telling the story of that part of the family in depth over several blog posts, I waited for several months before I heard anything. As it turned out, some of her descendants were curious about their family history, and while Googling some of the names, my name popped up. They could not believe their good fortune in finding so much about their tree all at once. I plan to visit them this coming week. They are excited to meet me and my husband and have a family Bible to show me. Oh my gosh. She says, thanks again, Lisa. Have a wonderful summer. Oh, thank you. Sherry, this is really cool. And I just love hearing blogging success stories. It really is like kind of putting Google cousin bait out there, isn't it? And just think, they were as excited as you are. And oh my gosh, talking to your own family ancestors on a road trip. How cool is that? Couldn't even plan it if you tried, right? Thank you so much for sharing that. And Lee has also started a new genealogy blog. She says, I just want to let you know that I've been listening to your old podcasts and working my way up to the present. I'm on episode 80 now, and I'm learning so much from you. It has never occurred to me to start a blog, but after listening to your advice on the subject, I finally decided to give it a whirl. I mentioned you and your Genealogy Gems podcast in the blog and linked to your page. That was very nice of you. Thank you, Lee. Oh, she says, I've heard that you say that you appreciate that on previous podcasts, so I thought it would be okay. Absolutely. If you'd like, you can view the blog. It's These Genes Fit. See, I told you, you guys have the coolest names for these blogs. So it's these, like THESE, genes, but it's GENES, fit.blogspot.com. I love your podcast, and once I'm caught up, I'm planning to become a premium member. Thanks for pushing me out of my comfort zone. And that's from Lee. I love this. She has a little quote on her email from Winnie the Pooh. He says, you can't stay in your corner of the forest waiting for others to come to you. You have to go to them sometimes. Who knew that Winnie the Pooh could be a genealogy blogger? I love that. You can't stay in your corner of the forest waiting for others to come to you. You have to go to them sometimes. And that's what we do when we do genealogy blogging. You can do it for free. You can use a site like Blogger, which Lee is using. So check out Lee's new blog, thesegenesfit.blogspot.com. And we have Sherry's new blog, My Descent into Descent.blogspot.ca. Of course, I'll have all that for you in the show notes. I've got more emails here. We'll save them for next time because I definitely want to get to our next gem. We are going to go behind the scenes of the TV series Who Do You Think You Are? Here in the U.S. with producer Allie Orton. And that is right after this.
Letter from my proud old dad, who knows that we are winning, and I'll bet he's glad. But more than any other, a line from my old mother. Bring me a letter from my hometown.
I've got some great news for all you genealogists out there. RootsMagic 6 is now available, and it offers some of the most customer-requested features, like online publishing, the ability to search every record, not just people, an editable timeline view, which is really incredible, and new web tags, which lets you link people, sources, places, and research log items to web pages, plus dozens of other great enhancements, and of course, all the built-in features that you've come to enjoy. There is a little something here for everyone. Now, if you're already a devoted RootsMagic user like I am, or if you're looking to take the next step in your family history research and finally start recording your family tree in your own genealogy database, or if you've just been wanting to make a switch to a much more user-friendly program, there's no better time to get your copy of RootsMagic 6. Do it now. Go to rootsmagic.com and download your risk-free trial of RootsMagic 6. You'll see why professionals and beginners alike choose RootsMagic at rootsmagic.com.
Well, it was a sad day when NBC canceled Who Do You Think You Are here in the U.S., but genealogists are now drying their eyes and grabbing their popcorn because it's returning to TV this month. The TLC channel has picked up Who Do You Think You Are, and the first episode featuring singer Kelly Clarkson premieres on July 23rd, 2013. Here to tell us all about it is producer and research manager for the series, Allie Orton. She's a graduate of the University of Southern California. She started working as a researcher on the first U.S. season of Who Do You Think You Are way back in 2008. And her current role, she oversees research development, coordinates the communication between Ancestry.com and the research staff, and of course she's shepherding these compelling stories to completion. Welcome to the show, Allie.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks very much for having me.
Oh, it's awesome to have you here because we had so much fun at the banquet at the Southern California Genealogical Society Jamboree together this year. That was great, and I was just thrilled that you could make some time to get on the podcast, too.
Yeah, we did have a lot of fun at the Jamboree, and we met really nice people.
That was great. Boy, what an enthusiastic audience. They were all so excited to hear what you had to say, and I can just preface this whole conversation with saying, boy, were they taken aback by your enthusiasm and your true passion for not just the show, but genealogy.
Well, that's very nice. And I thought they all asked really good questions. It's really fulfilling to see such a dedicated audience, especially after being off the air for a little while, as you said. So we're just very, very grateful, and we do not, take it for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's get right to it and let's dish. How did you get so lucky to work on this show, and do you love doing it?
I do love doing it. It's going to be, surprising probably to a lot of people, but I kind of got the job on a lark. We talked about this at the Jamboree, but I graduated from university, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I liked the idea of talking about history and doing something kind of in the public space, and I'd received an email from this woman named Anna Kirkwood, who was a producer on the UK version, and was flying over to the US to start up a team. And she was just sort of sending emails to all the history departments in the universities in Los Angeles, looking for people who might be interested in working in TV. And I had originally gone to school for film production, so I thought it was kind of a nice mix of my passions. And I started out as a researcher, as you said, researched for the first season along with a few other people, and then just kind of as the seasons progressed, moved up to research manager and then moved up to a producer. And I've been here ever since.
And, I feel a little bit in the same boat as you in that it's so fortunate to get to kind of marry together all these particular passions and interests that you have, both on the technical side, the production side, but then also just the history and the genealogy side. What was it like, jumping fast forward, when NBC canceled the show? How much time did you have in between that and when TLC picked it up?
Well, it was awful. It was really sad, not only because we love the show and we really appreciate the fan base, and the fan base is very dedicated, but also because the team here is just like a family, and we all just really enjoy each other's company. And so we got canceled, what was it, May of 2012?
Was it 12? Yeah.
Each season feels like 5 years, so
yeah.
it's hard to do the math. And then I would say we had like 2 or 3 weeks before we wrapped out. And then we were, down. We were dark until I think August of that year. So we really had the whole summer off, but it did not feel like a summer vacation because it was such a bummer. But actually in the middle of that summer, I think we got nominated for the Emmy. So that was kind of like the nice bright spot, sort of letting us know that people did love the show, even if we weren't going to be on television. And then, of course, we got picked up. It was wonderful. We were all so happy. And we were back in the office around the fall, more or less. But we still were sort of hammering out the details. So we didn't really start full research and production until the beginning of this year, honestly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's the fastest we've ever done a season by far. We've made 8 episodes in 7 months, which is just, it's staggeringly fast for this show. Season 1 took a year and a half.
Yeah. Wow. So
it's really been a whirlwind.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible turnaround. And let's talk a little bit about that turnaround and just the pace that you have to work at. Tell us a little bit just how the research process goes. People's first question I often hear is, okay, well, how in the world do they find the celebrities? Do the celebrities come knocking on your door, or do you track them down, or are these friends of Lisa Kudrow's, or how does that work?
Well, it's a mix. The 3 producers who are sort of out of house, but who executive produce the show, are Lisa Kudrow and Dan Bukatinsky, they own a production company called Is or Isn't Entertainment. And Dan is, in addition to being a television writer and an author, he's also on the TV show Scandal. Mm-hmm. So both he and Lisa are, obviously very enthusiastic shepherds of the series, and also very well connected within the industry. So sometimes friends will come to them, sometimes they'll go out to their friends, but also the in-house production company, Shed Media, and whichever network it is. In this case, obviously TLC. They'll sort of throw in their opinions about what sorts of people would be good on their channel, what kinds of people seem to have a fan base. And then the show will just go and approach additional actors, athletes, musicians, things like that. But we get a pretty good response. We've now been on TV long enough where pretty much I think everyone's heard of us. And a lot of people seem to really understand the value of the show. So I think we're very lucky. We get people who really want to be here, and that's always very fulfilling.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I bet. So they come to you, and I'm imagining you have to kind of work on spin on a dime to put together a team. Tell us, what's the length of time that you have to do the research, and what size of a team are you working with?
Well, let's see. So once a participant or celebrity expresses interest, the first thing we do is we set up a meeting or a phone call, and our in-house executive producer, Al Edgington, and I will talk to them about what they know, what they don't know, what they'd like to find out, if they have any hunches. A lot of people feel like they know nothing about their family history, but it turns out they have some hunches that, even if they're not technically correct, they're sort of valuable. Like somebody will have the vague notion that they might be English, maybe feel like they heard a story about the gold rush, but they're not really sure why they think that. Just little things like that, more often than not, turn out to have some basis in a story they heard at some point as a very young child. So we really pay attention to those things. The other thing is I try to get a sense of, who the family archivist is, who has all the photos, who has all the stories. Is there a great aunt that's still kicking who wants to talk to us? And then basically I meet with my research staff, and we really just branch out and call as many people as we can in the family. The research staff, depending on the year, consists of like 4 to 6 researchers, or associate producers is what they're called when they're promoted. But basically it's their job to call all the family members, get as much info as possible, work with the genealogists at Ancestry.com. As you know, we have an integration deal with them. And also hire genealogists, researchers, archivists, journalists on the ground in the various states and countries to perform original research. And then after that, they start consulting with historians in the given fields to make sure that we have all the right historical context to understand these ancestors as people, as characters, we call them. And at that point, the staff will work together to figure out, who the strongest characters are, build the narrative, and sort of figure out what the hoodoo journey is going to consist of for each episode. That whole process, technically, it can take as much as a year. We've also had to do it in like a month. This year's Chris O'Donnell episode was the fastest we've
Really?
Yeah, it was like a month of research and we were off to the races. But we were lucky because the research was very strong. But I would say that typically we aim for like a 3-month research process, and then we have a director and a story producer come on, who's sort of like the right-hand person to the director, and a unit manager who deals with logistics. They'll come on, they'll start scouting locations, they'll sort of get a loose story together or script, but it's not a script in this technical sense because nobody learns lines or anything.
Right.
It's just sort of like blocking out the logic puzzle of the story. Like, okay, for this person to move from this archive to that archive, they need to find this document, that kind of thing. And then that whole process is about a 6-week period. And then they film, which usually takes anywhere from like 6 to 14 days. And then after that, an episode is usually in the edit for, depending on when we shoot it, 2 to 3 months. And then they sort of stack up until they're ready to be on TV.
Wow. Such a process. Now, you've already thrown out some keywords that, pique my interest, which you've talked about story. Mm-hmm. You've said characters, blocking it out. And I wanted to kind of ask you, it's funny, I think of Lisa Kudrow's company is or isn't entertainment. What is this and what is it not when we talk about the show? I think a lot of people assume it's kind of supposed to be the celebrity, and that celebrity is going to be finding their roots, and somehow sometimes the way they narrate the episode, you sort of get the impression that they're sort of saying that they're directing the process, but in actuality, it's really more like a discovery ride, isn't it? It's a ride that you're putting them on. They kind of climb in, and you take them on this journey. So what is an episode of Who Do You Think You Are, and what is it not for you?
Well, that's a really good question. One of the things we always say is that it's a journey of discovery. Mm-hmm. That part is completely true. So, for instance, when you're watching the show and, Emmett Smith is surprised to find his ancestors on an 1880 census, or he's, gratified to finally get past that wall of the 1870 census back to the time when his ancestors were in fact enslaved. All of those reactions are 100% real.
Right.
The celebrity, when they embark on the journey, they don't have any sense of really where they're going or what they're going to find. So they do drive the narrative in the sense that it's completely their organic emotional journey. Mm-hmm. But as you can imagine, you can't just show up in an archive in the middle of nowhere with a bunch of cameras and a huge team of people and ask if you can, get your grubby hands all over these original 17th century documents. So
right.
The sense of where we're going in advance. And so in that sense, I would say that you're right. We plan the journey out ahead of time, and we plan the spine of the narrative. We plan the scavenger hunt. Mm-hmm. But once we set it up, it's entirely up to the participant, whoever he or she may be, to decide how they're going to integrate the information they learn into their own sense of identity, their own sense of what they know about their family, whether they like their ancestors or not. I mean, there have definitely been cases where we've assumed a person would feel one way, and then when, you know, he or she was in the middle of their journey, it turns out they had a very different reaction than we had thought. And that's when you feel very gratified to be working on a program that, I mean, when it's good, I think really challenges people in a positive and, you know, intellectually stimulating way, and hopefully a, you know, emotionally fulfilling way as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that comes through. And one of the things I wanted to kind of convey to our listening audience is that even though in genealogists we watch the show and we tend to see it from our perspective, but in reality you're not presenting a show that says, let's teach you how to do genealogy.
Yeah.
In a sense, you're really doing what all of us need to be doing with all of our family members and the non-genealogists in our life, is you are showing this prime example of telling the story and actually helping somebody who's not a genealogist experience it.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's all the storytelling components that we, as genealogists, we should be watching the show to learn how you do that, because you do it without boring them to tears.
Well, that's very kind of you. I mean, I would say a couple things about that. I mean, I know we've talked about this before in other settings, but first of all, we have 42 minutes and 30 seconds when you take out advertisements. Wow. And so, you know, we shoot many more hours.
Yeah.
But when the participant becomes engaged and they do a lot of processing and they do a lot of, you know, they draw conclusions, they synthesize information, all of those comments are what makes the show so great in a lot of ways. But they take time out of the time you spend, like, pulling the document. So, for instance, one of the things we really try to do is set up searches where the participant can be active, where they can, like, find the call number, go to the file, load the microfilm. But more often than not, if the celebrity is really engaged, a lot of those get cut because we just don't have time to see a microfilm machine load when we want to be seeing the person connect to their great-great-grandfather. So one of the things is just we lose certain records. You know, we lose part of the organic minutia of the process for the sake of time. But the other thing I think is, you know, you're right. What we love about genealogy, you and me and probably a lot of your listeners, is that you do get to just dive into records and you get to sit there for days and you get to live in this world of, like, these tiny details and these tiny mysteries you have to solve one by one. But if somebody's not already a genealogist, chances are that's not the most appealing part of the process for them. And it's kind of like I would draw a parallel to how I feel about baseball, which is I don't really care about it that much. However, I love baseball movies, and my grandfather was a baseball player, and I love, like, the myth of baseball, the romance of baseball, the sort of, like, evocative summer feeling of baseball and a, like, nice long green lawn. And so I can't sit there talking baseball stats, and I never will. But if somebody wants to get me into baseball, they just need to talk about, you know, like, the beauty of the history of, you know, the Red Sox, or the tragedy of the Red Sox, or, you know, the glory of, like when Mickey Mantle was around and when, you know, Lou Gehrig was around.
Well, that's the mistake a lot of people make, is they start throwing the stats at people and they just glaze over and go, what am I supposed to do with that?
Exactly. And I think that, you know, if I could give advice to anybody, it's that people want to feel a sense of connection, and people often feel like something's missing in their lives and it can't be fulfilled by material needs. So teaching them how to engage with their ancestors on a personal level, you know, looking for the person behind the names and dates, looking for, you know, the highs and lows of a long life or a tragically short life. I think these are things that anybody can connect to, and trying to figure out how your documents tell a story, or how your ancestors or a client's ancestors fit into a larger picture, a larger historical or societal dialogue. I mean, I think these kinds of things would capture almost anyone's attention. It's easier to see the relevance to your life when you emphasize the story. That's
exactly it. It's easier to bring it inside when it has evoked some kind of an emotion. It's you know, there's been a response there. So Kelly Clarkson is the first premiere episode this season, and it's on iTunes already for free. We were all thrilled to see that we could get a little sneak peek, but of course it's also going to be on the TLC channel. Was that the first one you did this season, or did you pick it particularly as your premiere?
I think TLC chose it, because if you've watched it, as you can tell, she's the loveliest person in the world.
Yeah.
And I think also that one's a very sort of happy episode. It wasn't the first one we filmed, but it was the second. So it was pretty close to the front end. But that one's very sort of like a classic Hoodoo episode in that it has big American themes. And I think too, the thing that's revisionist about it is that Kelly is much younger than a lot of the people we've had on the show before.
Absolutely.
So we really get to see that youthful enthusiasm. And I know, I think more and more young people are coming to genealogy, and I count myself among them. I'm in my 20s. And so I think she's a good representative of the ways that genealogy is appealing to people who know how to access digital records and are, expert online savants and things like that.
Yeah, and it's neat to see that you really did capture some great younger folks who could, participate in it. It's funny. It's almost like you'd have to name it again, because when I talk to younger people, they don't always know the name of the show, but they go, they call it That Genealogy Show.
Yeah.
It's like that 70s show. You could just call it, have another version of it called That Genealogy Show. They know what you're talking about. You've already had, several seasons under your belt. You have the new one now. Were there any that you kind of poured yourself, you really worked hard on it and got over some hurdles, and where you were just like, wow, look at that reaction, where it just took your breath away to see what it finally meant to the celeb who was involved in it?
I feel like that a lot, actually. The Lisa Kudrow episode was the first one I ever did. It was actually the first episode we filmed, period. That one's very near and dear to my heart. If you recall the plot, basically it was about her paternal family. They were from Belarus. Many people had been killed in the Holocaust. But there was a cousin that had survived and then disappeared around 1948 to 1951. They couldn't remember exactly. They always figured he had somehow been killed. But we ended up finding him, and the family was able to reunite. And I just felt very attached to that story, because it was more than just watching somebody. I mean, that's a perfect example of, it's technically genealogy, but it's actually living history. All these people were still alive.
Yeah.
All of these people were allowed to change their future based on what they learned. So that was incredibly gratifying, and it will always hold a special place in my heart. But there have been many examples this season, and we actually have one left, so we'll see. But there have been many examples this season where I just felt so proud of the research that we did, and the celebrities, I think, were very moved, or the participants. Celebrities sort of these people are very serious about this work, and the Zoe Deschanel episode, I think, is a really good one, and I just think when you watch it, it's very hard not to really connect to the story and just be amazed and overwhelmed by the quality of people, she descends from. So,
yeah,
that one.
I imagine just the fact that you've been doing this now a couple of years means you can you're not so much in that figure it out mode. You're actually able to maybe enjoy it a little bit, the process a little bit more, because you guys now have kind of a rhythm going, and there's always new challenges. But I know for me doing this show, I get to enjoy even conversations like this so much more. I'm not sweating over, do I have the recorder turned on right, and have I got the logistics correct?
Yeah. To be honest with you, I don't know if I can agree.
Really?
I feel like, well, for one thing, I think that the people who work on the research staff, and even though I'm a producer now, I count myself among them, we just love a good puzzle. So the hard part in that sense is what makes it fun. But in terms of logistics, it's always really hard in a surprising way. Like, no matter how well you think you plan, there's just always something that happens, like a giant tornado knocks down a building.
Holy cow.
Or flights get canceled, or, somebody has a family emergency and things get rescheduled. I mean, this is the part where, for anybody who's not sure, it's very documentary. I mean, We've been in some of the worst weather disasters, America has had in the past 5 years.
So it's not quite like shooting in a studio where you've got some...
No. So all the time, you're just like, okay, I hope that when we were filming Rashida Jones in Latvia, there was a giant protest.
Oh my gosh.
There are just all kinds of things that you never foresee, that just make the show very exciting, I guess.
Well, and I imagine that one of the other things that you can't foresee is, Allie, do you ever get 3/4 of the way in and go, oh my gosh, we just hit a dead end on this, and I don't know where this is going to go or how we can wrap this into a 42-minute story?
Yeah. I don't think it takes till 3/4 of the way in. That has become a little bit more old hat. You can kind of see it coming when it's not going to work out, but it definitely occurs. It occurred once this season. That's the best track record we've ever had. We were luckier this season than we ever have been and will ever be again. Many other seasons we've researched 32 people to have 8 of them make it. It really just, sometimes you start the research and you do not find enough documents. You find enough documents if you were working for a client off camera and you were just explaining to them what you found. But in no way do you have enough documents to sort of structure a narrative and really tell a story about a person. Because remember, a lot of our episodes, the Kelly Clarkson episode, focuses on one ancestor the whole way through. So that's 42 minutes and 30 seconds of documents about one guy who lived in the 1800s. So
you may not necessarily have an autobiography written by him or something that gives you all this context and dialogue.
Exactly. So you really do need a lot. We usually tell us an episode in about, depending on how you count, around 20 documents, and then a few will get cut. But we pull, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of documents every episode to be able to select the strongest records. So, yes, frequently the stories won't work out.
Yeah, it's obvious in the episodes that sometimes it's the record that's the star. You pull something out and you go, whoa, how did they find that? And that's incredible that it still exists.
I know, and it's really funny, too. It is incredible, and it's to the credit of these archives. And I can't stress enough that, if I were very wealthy, I would donate a lot of money to archives to make sure that their documents are well preserved.
Exactly.
These people get paid nothing. Or, literally sometimes nothing. And they're really hurting in this economy, and they need all the help they can get.
So true. It's been so much fun talking to you. I have two, a little more on the personal side, questions left to ask you. And one was, if you dare tell me, what was your personal favorite of all the stories that you've covered? I know you mentioned Lisa's story, which is absolutely riveting. Was there one that just kind of, you just went, oh, wow, that's meaty, I love that?
Well, taking outside the emotional side and just sort of looking at the ancestors and the history, I have to say that it is, the Zooey Deschanel episode coming up this year. I just watched a recent cut of it. I am just champing at the bit for everybody to see it. It's at the beginning of the series, all the researchers sat down and we made a wish list of the things we wanted to find, during our time at the show. And one of those things we finally found in the Zooey Deschanel episode. And I don't want to reveal what it is, but if you watch the trailer, you can get a few clues. But I just think, a lot of times what happens with history is, because history is so often told by the victors, the perspective that you're able to unearth, the people for whom the most documents survive are people who tended to be wealthy, people who tended to be powerful, people who tended not to be minorities. So you get a certain type of narrative, fairly frequently. But in the case of Zoe's ancestors, we got people who felt that something was wrong and wanted to do something about it without giving too much away. I just think their narrative is so different from the stories we usually get to tell, and I found it really inspiring. So I love that.
And that kind of echoes, I would think, what all of us feel. Because you're right, there are some consistencies in what we find simply because of the type of records that are left. It's riveting when you can find those special gems sitting out there that are still intact, and you really get to know. And, of course, you have the enviable position of getting to sit down and chat with a lot of these folks who are well-known and well-respected in their fields. And do you have a favorite? You've had several seasons now to pick from. Anybody who just stood out, you just went, oh, my gosh. Or maybe they surprised you just how really lovely they were.
Oh, gosh. Well, that's a really hard one to answer because I love so many of the people we've spoken to. So I can't narrow it down to one, and I'll immediately feel bad about all the people I left out. But this season, I will say again, the Zoe episode has some amazing contributors. Though there are a lot of very good contributors. Well, Steve Aaron, who's been on our show many times, he's a professor of history, American history at UCLA, and he was the director, I think, of the Autry Museum in Los Angeles for a while. He was in the Helen Hunt episode, I think the Tim McGraw, and I think one other, but I'm forgetting which one. But he's lovely and loads of fun. And just like a very personable, interesting guy. And he took us on a tour of the Autry, which I love.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. We got to go underground and like see all the cool stuff. And then there's Phil Otterness, who I indirectly mentioned him. He's the Palatine expert in Tim McGraw. And he's just about the nicest person you're ever going to meet in your entire life. And he's so lovely. And he teaches in Asheville. So if anyone lives around there, he's amazing. But Jackie Jones, she wrote Labor of Love, Labor of Sorrow, which is a book on African American women. She's like one of the most famous people I think I've ever met. And I haven't technically met her, but I got to talk to her one time. So I don't know. It's just really hard to pick. But we definitely, I would say in this office, the celebrities to us are the historians.
Yeah.
We just get themselves. We get so excited.
Yeah. You've built an incredible Rolodex of all our superheroes in history. And like you said, you're really getting an opportunity to tap into these people who are like super hyper focused in one area and they just know it inside and out. It's exciting, I think, when you meet somebody like that. You just want to pick their brain.
I know.
Or download it.
I know. We get crushes on all of them, too.
Yeah.
Which is really silly, but it's true.
I bet. So. And I met Alita at the Jamboree. She's still working with you. She's such a doll, and she's still doing her research.
Yeah, she's working on the last episode. So she and I are here till the bitter end. But yeah, we've got one more that's about to go, and then we're just in the edit, and we're excited for the premiere.
I bet. What are you going to do? How are you guys celebrating the premiere?
We go to a restaurant, but to be honest with you, the edit schedule is so busy. We don't really do that much because people are working so hard. So we basically go to a restaurant and have a little food, and we'll watch the Kelly Clarkson episode, and then people will go back to work.
The glamorous life.
Yeah. It's not quite as glamorous as people imagine, but it's still pretty great.
Exactly. Oh, it sounds great. You have been so great. I've just had a blast getting to know you over the last couple of weeks and months, and I'm excited to see your new season. Is anything going to be different? Are we going to see something like, whoa, they weren't doing that before?
Good question. I'd say that the sort of shape and look of the episodes is the same. I'd just say in terms of subject matter, we hit on some cool stuff we haven't been able to do before. So if you've seen the trailer, I'm trying to think of some things we reveal. Okay, so clearly there's something about World War II, which that's very exciting. Germany and World War II. Let's see. There's something, we go very far back in history, for Cindy Crawford, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
And what else? Well, there's some very American themes, in the Chris O'Donnell episode, really personal, close history in the Christina Applegate episode, which is amazing. And I'm just looking, Trisha, I don't think that the trailer gives away too much on hers, except for it's clear she goes somewhere really, really beautiful and green. Which is very exciting. And then Jim Parsons, the trailer probably gives away nothing, but that one's going to be great.
Did you get an opportunity to meet him?
I didn't meet him in person. I spoke to him on the phone. He was lovely. They're all really great. They're all, for a person who's a, working actor or a working musician or model, how many days we take to shoot is a very long time. And not a lot of people have the schedule that allows that much time. So for the fact that they've fit this into their schedule, it means they're really looking forward to it and they prioritize it. I mean, I think, so we've just been really lucky. We only ever get people who really want to do this and understand the value of it.
Well, and Big Bang Theory is huge. I was just like, wow, there was a coup to be able to get him and like you say, get that kind of a chunk of his time. Yeah. I mean, I'm really looking forward to that episode.
Yeah, and we go some really cool places in that episode. I'm very excited. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm excited to see it.
Oh, gosh. Well, yeah, you're in the editing. Well, we're all really excited about it. And, of course, everybody listening has got to tune in because we want to make sure we pump those numbers up. We want to see another season with TLC. See, we're already planning on that. We want to make sure that you're there and bringing us some really cool stories. I want to say, Allie, I really see you as somebody who can be an inspiration in terms of storytelling for all of us. Because that's a big job, and you do it over and over again, and you even do it with folks where it's all brand new to you. These are not your families, they're other people's families, and to bring us to tears and to bring us to laughter and everything in between, wow, if we could only do that with our own families, then we really would be doing something. So kudos to you, young lady.
Thank you. It's a team effort over here, and we would be nothing without the people who watch us and who work in the archives and do their own family history and put it online. I mean, we work with public trees all the time. I just want to make sure people know that,
they're checking out your trees.
Yeah. So make sure you list your sources.
Thank you. Now that is a note worth ending on. Oh, thank you so much, Allie. We're just real excited for you guys, and hopefully we're going to be talking to you next season because there'll be a next season.
Hopefully. Fingers firmly crossed.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lisa.
Thanks so much for joining me for Genealogy Gems Podcast episode number 158. You can stay in touch with me all month long between episodes by subscribing to the free Genealogy Gems newsletter. Lots of great gems and content in there for you. You can do it right on my homepage of my website, genealogygems.com. And if you like this podcast, I promise you're going to love being a Genealogy Gems premium member. And you can do that at the website as well. For one low price, you get access to hundreds of exclusive premium episodes and videos of my most popular genealogy classes for a whole year. That's the best deal going in genealogy, and one that's going to keep you up to date, keep you motivated and inspired to make incredible strides growing your family tree. And here's a thought to ponder until we meet here again next time. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. Thanks so much for listening, friend. I'll talk to you soon.